Hey Web World, Scotty D. Thanks for stopping by to my April comic book pull, haul, featurette video, whatever you want to call it, where I showcase all of the latest comics that I've added to my collection for that very month. And I do this video once a month just because I think that it allows me to capture and collect more information to bring to you beyond just showcasing the comics that I've added, because I've seen other people's videos that show their comic collection, and literally they go, well, here's a comic, and here's a comic, and here's a comic, and here's a comic, and that's all they ever do. And frankly, I don't like those videos. It's nice to see cover art, but talk a little bit more about why you got the comic. If you want to share a little bit about the story, do so. But don't just show me cover art in about a 2-second flash and then you're on to the next comic. I just think that the way that I do my video allows you to be more engaged with not only my collecting, but also I can bring to you some new news for the month around the comic book collecting arena. And I'm going to be doing that here on this very video. Stay tuned. I'm going to be talking about CGC. Oh boy, this is a very controversial topic, but I've got a very important conversation about that. If you are watching the calendar, this coming Saturday is the first Saturday in May. And why is that important to comic book collectors? Well, it is Free Comic Book Day. Check that out. Save the date for May the 3rd, 2014. And if you don't know anything about Free Comic Book Day, let me see if I can get really close to the camera and see if it'll get in. There you go. Go to freecomicbookday.com and check out that site. You would be surprised on how great this day is to anybody that's into collecting comics. And if you've never collected comics and you're watching this video, this is a great way to get introduced into comic book collecting. It happens on the first Saturday in May every single year. The comics are never the same from year to year, and this is going to be my first Free Comic Book Day ever. My local comic shop is participating in this, and when you go to freecomicbookday.com, right there, there is a section of that website that you can check out what comic book stores or local comic shops are participating, and you can find the one in your local area and go on down and check it out this coming Saturday. In fact, my LCS, or local comic shop, this is one of their biggest days of the year. They give away over 1,500 comics on Free Comic Book Day. Can you believe that? Over 1,500 comics for free! So definitely save the date, get down to your local comic shop in your respective area and check out Free Comic Book Day. And of course, like I said, if you've never been involved or don't know anything about Free Comic Book Day, go to that link right there, freecomicbookday.com. Check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. By the way, Free Comic Book Day is not a sponsor of this video. I just wanted to share that information with you because I think that it is very important, especially if you've got young kids that may have shown an interest in reading, but maybe they can't find something that they're interested in reading. This is going to be it. I'm telling you what, right here, some of the biggest comic book names are going to be given out on Free Comic Book Day, so check that out. So let's dive right into the pull for the month, and then we're going to be talking about CGC. My pull for the month of April is huge, part and parcel because of my LCS pull, part and parcel of some auctions that I've won, and as well as a comic book convention that I went to right here in Pittsburgh. And if you happen to be here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, or anywhere in Western PA, drop it in the comment below. I'd love to find all of the local comic collectors right here in the Pittsburgh area. So let's start off with my comic pull for the month. And if you watched last month's video, you know that I am an avid Star Wars purist collector, and that's all the comics that I collect. So my comic pull is by far what I consider extremely small compared to some of the action and superhero comic collectors out there. Those who collect superhero comics probably have several comics, if not more, a month that they have on their pull list. And I talked about what a pull list was on last month's video. Check it out for the month of March. But here is my comic pull for the month of April. Only 2 comics. And again, I only collect certain Star Wars comics that stay as close to being true to the canon. And if you are a Star Wars fan, you know what the canon is. It's the original 6 movies that were out, and of course the 7th is in production right now, that stays true to the storyline. There is the expanded universe world of Star Wars collectors, and certainly you're entitled to like that. I've seen and read a couple of them, and they get a little too far off the beaten path for me, and somewhat non-believable to the overall storyline of Star Wars. But this is my number 7 comic, issue number 7 from the Star Wars series from Dark Horse. This one is entitled Enter the Sith. I have not read this comic particularly just yet. I've read up to number 7, so I've read 1 through 6 already. I have in my collection. In fact, there's a 0 number to this collection. I really like this comic book series because it is based on the rough draft screenplay from George Lucas. So it's really getting into the mindset of what George Lucas was thinking about before what we know as the movies came to be reality. So this is a great storyline. I highly recommend it to any Star Wars fan that's out there that's into collecting comics or just wants to read a great story. This one is only going to go up to number 8 in the series before they stop this run of comics. And of course, 2015 turns over a whole new leaf for Star Wars comic creations as the ownership or the rights goes away from Dark Horse right there and goes back to Marvel, because we all know Disney owns Marvel, and Disney just bought Star Wars recently from George Lucas, and now Disney has the rights to do whatever they want with it. And of course, they've got Marvel underneath their wings, so you know that was the logical destination for Star Wars comics. So again, not going to spill too much of the storyline on this, but it is a great storyline to get into if you are a purist Star Wars fan. I know that there are some people out there that do not like the prequels, 1, 2, and 3. I happen to like all of them, you know, in their own respective way, because that was what George Lucas intended to be on the screen. It may not be what you like or have wanted to see in the prequels, but I like really getting into the mindset of George Lucas of what he intended Star Wars to be, and seeing 1 through 6 as the movies, and also reading this, which is the original rough draft screenplay by George Lucas in an adaptation form in a comic. It's a great insight into the mind of George Lucas. So check that out. Numbers 1 through 7 are available now. Number 8 will be the last one as it's released next month. A great series of comics to read. This one is to be the other comic that is on my pull from my LCS. I love this cover art on this one, and I know I say don't get too hung up in the cover art just by showcasing it, but this one is a story that I haven't read yet. And being the purest Star Wars collector that I am, there's a reason why I collected this particular series. This one is called Star Wars. It is really Volume 2 Star Wars from Dark Horse Comics. And the reason why I like this storyline or this series of Star Wars comics is because they're using the original characters in this particular series, and I like that. I don't want to see a character that is so obscure and far off from the beaten path of the canon that becomes unbelievable. In Star Wars, the Volume 2 Star Wars from Dark Horse Comics has the original characters in it. It's not necessarily going to be the whole direct storyline or even the original discussion or storyline of Star Wars, but they use the characters, and that makes the story a little bit more believable, being what it is. This one right here, I have 1 through 16 minus number 8, and that's the reason why I have not read this. I've found myself, I can't read a comic like 10, 11, 12, and then go back and read 1 through 11 when I get them. I want to read and really just binge read the comic all the way from where it started to where it is. And I want to do that when I have the entire set, the complete set. So there's completist collectors, and I am one of those on this set right here. That I'm missing number 8 now. That's the last one I need to complete this series, and then I'm going to read 1 through 16, and by the time I get number 8, 17 will be out. So check that out. A great series. This artwork is phenomenal. Look at that X-Wing right there, and there's a couple of other X-Wings flying really tight on the terrain. This one is awesome. I can't wait to read this entire series, 1 through 17, when I get next month, when I have number 8 in the series. All of these are bagged and boarded and in my collection, but one of the things that I don't do is I don't tape down the back if I haven't read it yet. There are some comics that I have read that I'm going to showcase today that I have read, but I ran out of my acid-free tape. That I've got to get some more acid-free tape. I don't think that it does you any good if you're going to put the energy into using polypropylene bags or Mylar bags and acid-free backing boards in the right size bag size, and then you go ahead and you put whatever tape on the back. I mean, really, if you're going to truly stick with trying to protect your comic as much as you can, get acid-free tape. They sell it. It's real cheap. I put a link in the video description below of last month's video. I'll put another link in this video so it's easy to find for acid-free tape that you can use to securely close the back of your bags. People will say, well, it's on the outside of the bag, so this acid is not going to affect the inside. I just think that if you're going to go the extra mile to protect your comic, do it the right way and do it the right way from the start. Don't use standard Scotch tape. Definitely not the shiny Scotch tape. That stuff sticks entirely too sticky, and it's hard to get it off if you ever want to go back and read your comics. So I'll be talking about some bags, boards, and Mylar techniques in next month's video. This month is the discussion about CGC. So here we go right here on this. And then we have right here, let me check this out. I just had a pop-up and put this back over here. So this is a set of comics that I got from an auction online. And I was very surprised and impressed with this particular auction because the seller really took time to answer my questions. No matter how tough the question was, I was able to get all of my questions answered, as well as the way that they shipped it to me. It was in a box, double boarded and wrapped in paper. So these comics were very well protected when they were shipped. They are in silver size BCW bags and boards. And just to give you an idea, both this comic and this comic are from the same run. This is number 7. But you can tell. Look how tight the comic is on this. This is a modern or current size bag and board. There's the board right there. It's very tight on the comic. It fits it snug. Don't get me wrong, it does good. But I'm really impressed with silver-sized bags and boards. And this is a brand new silver-sized bag and board from BCW, both the board and the bag. I'm very impressed. In fact, I'm going to be swapping and changing out my bags and boards that I currently use, which are BCW current bag and boards. And I'm going to be going with the Silver Age bag and board, just because it gives a little bit more protection. When you're bagging and boarding your comics, you don't want your comics to be able to move too far around in the bag, because you can actually damage your comic if it's in the wrong size bag and board. But what you get here on this is if the comic falls, the board is going to hit first, and it's going to protect the edges of the comic a little bit better. This one right here, if it fell, you might get some damage. You might, if it's a thick comic, it might roll the edges a little bit. This is not the case on this one. So if you're looking for that kind of universal bag and board to use, in my opinion, the Silver Age bag and board is the one to go with. And I'll be talking more in depth with that as we get into the Mylar discussion as well. But I just wanted to show you the differences of that. So here's number 7. Again, I have not read this series yet because I'm missing number 8. I'm missing number 8 in this series, and because of that, I haven't read the series yet. But these are taped shut from the seller. Some great artwork on this one from Darth Vader. The Empire is watching you. This one is number 7. Again, I can't share too much of the storyline on this one because I haven't read it yet. So I'm just going to show you the cover art on this. But I do like this one because of the original characters in it. So you see right there, Han, Luke, Leia, Chewie, Darth Vader right there. Han and Chewie right there. I really like using the original characters in the storyline. That drew me into this. In fact, I didn't even buy this series at first until my LCS recommended it to me. And that's something, too, when you get LCS with a pull list or just buying comics from them. Let them know what you're interested in, because they can help suggest comic lines to you that you may never have, kind of swayed and got off the rack. So here is number 4 from the series, from Volume 2 of Star Wars from Dark Horse Comics. Here is number 3 right here. Han Solo, some stormtroopers on there. A really mysterious look of Obi-Wan right there. I can't wait to read this thing. Never con a smuggler. Yeah, and don't piss off a bounty hunter either, because then you end up in carbonite. Let's see. Here is another one from Dark Horse from Volume 2. This is number 2. All in near mint to mint condition. I love it. And from an auction. People say, oh, be careful buying from auctions. And I have to agree with them. But you have to also know what you're buying and who you're buying from. And get your questions answered. If the auction seller tries to not answer your question, or they kind of duck and weave and dodge your question with ambiguous answers, that's a warning right there. Make sure you get your questions answered, and if you need more pictures, don't be shy to ask the seller to take another picture. I asked this seller a ton of questions. They took some additional pictures. It's just a good experience when you do that, buying from auctions. So number 2, I love the shot of the Millennium Falcon on this. Check that out. That is awesome. And what's nice about Dark Horse as well is you can get a free digital copy of your comic. Let's see. Come on. Get in. There he is. Get your free digital copy. See the inside for details. You can get a free digital copy of your comics if you're into digital comics. I'm personally not. I like the paper. But if you do want to get a digital copy, Dark Horse is great for giving you a free digital copy with your purchase. Here is number 1, the original first print of number 1, and you can tell that by the barcode, the 00111. That last number 1 is an indicator that this is the first print of this particular comic and the first variant of the cover, because there are multiple variants of this cover for Volume 2 Star Wars. And this is a great one. And again, that is the one that got me. Classic characters in an all-new Star Wars. Very, very cool. And once I get number 8, which is the only one that I'm missing from this series, I will read them all and I will give you my humble opinion on this particular series. So let me set these off to the side. And last but not least, my haul from our local comic book convention that happened right here in Pittsburgh during the month of April 2014. It was Steel City Con. I never went to a comic book convention ever in my entire life, and this was my first. I had a great experience with it. I got to tell you, I was a little taken back when I first went in, because the floor was split, about a 60-40 split, 60% collectibles and toys and things like that, and about 40% of the floor was comics. And I found out real fast how much of an elitist and a unique collector I am, and anybody who's an exclusive Star Wars collector is in comics, because out of the 40% of the floor in the comics, only 2 of them had a large variety of Star Wars comics to choose from. A couple of them had the annuals, and they were in CGC cases, but the bulk of the floor was superheroes and DC and Marvel and things like that. So if you were into that, it was your way to go. For me, I had to really hunt to find the comics, and that's the fun of collecting comics, especially if you're going back to the Silver Age comics, some of your legacy comics. The thrill of the hunt is part of the fun in collecting comics. So this is one that I got. And now, I don't collect comics just for getting the comic. I told you that before. I have a very detailed method by which I collect comics, and I'm going to be showcasing how I do that on next month's pull video. But there are some very extreme details on why I collect a comic, whether it's new or old. So here's the first comic that I found in my quest during Steel City Con. And by the way, if you've never been to Steel City Con and you're in the Pittsburgh or greater Pittsburgh area or in the surrounding states that are close to Pittsburgh, check out Steel City Con. The next one is in early April, and going to be some great celebrity appearances there as well. Me and my family went all together. It was kind of a family day, and we got a picture with Jonathan Frank and Brent Spiner, which are Data and Riker from Star Trek The Next Generation. Real great, nice guys, very approachable. Jonathan Frank was extremely funny, so definitely go out and check out the next Steel City Con. Geordie LaForge is going to be at the next Steel City Con. And oh, by the way, Steel City Con is also not a sponsor of this video. Just bringing some awareness to you. Definitely check it out. You can find some great finds in comic book collecting, as well as if you're a toy collector as well, in some of the vintage toys out there. Some great finds as well, and some custom things you'll find at these conventions as well that you can't buy in any store. So check out that. Here's the first one that I have. This is from the original Marvel run of Star Wars comics. This is an original print of Star Wars number 35. The reason why I like Star Wars 35, and I told you that I don't like when people just show a cover and go on to the next one. I like number 35 because it is when Vader discovers that it was Luke Skywalker who destroyed the Death Star, and up to this point in the chronological order of the comics, Vader just really knew Skywalker was part of the responsibility for the destruction of the Death Star, but he didn't know who destroyed the Death Star. So he finds that out in this one, so that's a very important reason why I collected this comic. And up to this point, he's also wearing some other than traditional farm boy outfits for the first time since the movie adaptation, as this is the first time we see him dressed in the same outfit that he wore during the medal ceremony in A New Hope. So a great first part to the story where Darth Vader finds out that Luke is the one who destroyed the Death Star. And this will be the last Marvel story in a comic adaptation before the Empire Strikes Back film debuted. So that's the reason why I wanted this. Very important to the overall storyline of Star Wars. So as you can see, it's not just because, well, it's part of the original Marvel. There's 107 original Marvel comics, and I can tell you that about half of them I want. The other half, I can really care less about. Even as a purist, I can care less about. Number 8, I believe it's number 8, is one of the ones that is a very sought-after one. It has Jackson the Green Rabbit in it. They had that at the convention for a very reasonable price. I couldn't break myself down to buy it. I just couldn't. In no way, shape, or form did Lucas ever have a humanoid green rabbit in his storyline. And because of that, even though it's a strange and bizarre comic, I couldn't break myself down to buy it. Maybe sometime in the future I will, but this time I just couldn't do it. It just was not on my my wish list for the convention. So anyway, that's one that I got at the convention. All of these are in, I would say, near mint condition. The original owner was the one that was selling them. Again, ask questions. I ask permission to pull them out of the bags at the convention. Show them you don't have like ketchup or nacho cheese all over your fingers, or grease from the French fries. In fact, if you carry around a kind of a wet nap or kind of a wet wipey they sell in portable things, you can show that you're serious about this by wiping your hands off before handling somebody else's comics. Just shows a little respect. Pull them out, take a look at it. Look at the page quality. Look at the corners. These are in great condition. And I went ahead and I put these in some new bags and boards. And of course, like I mentioned, I'm going to be swapping all my bags and boards out. Here is number 39 from Star Wars in the original Marvel run. Try to get this without a reflection from the light. Now, number 39 is important because it's the first time we've seen a 40-cent to 50-cent price jump on Star Wars comics. So this was the first 50-cent comic right there. 50 cent. And if we go back to, this is number 39. And if we go back to, here is 35, you can see the 40 to 50 cent price difference. The change actually happened between 38 and 39. 39 was the first 50-cent comic from Star Wars. And you'll also notice right up here, something different. There's the corner art on 35. Here's the corner art on 39. Check out the difference. There's a particular importance to that on 39 through a couple of other issues of Star Wars. This is one of 6 of the Empire Strikes Back adaptations in comic book form. This is a great comic to own. Just because of the price difference when it jumped, that was important to me. Of course, you are subjective to your reasoning for why you buy comics. I look for uniqueness in old comics of why I would want this in my comic, a story that I could tell along with it when I share it with somebody that might be interested in reading it. Here is number 40, also part of the Empire Strikes Back 6 comic series. Now the Wampuses is that even a real word? The Wampus monsters in this one held captured in the base in this comic, which were actually removed from the film in final editing. So in the final editing of the film, they had the Wampus monsters in capture at the base, but they removed it. They exist in this particular comic in the series of Empire Strikes Back and the adaptation. So very important because of the uniqueness that the Wampus monsters are in capture here. They do not exist in the movie, but they were in the film. They filmed it as that, but then they chopped that out in final editing. So very important piece of this. Now, I have read this one. I have not taped it down yet because, again, the lackness of my acid-free tape that I still have to get some more of. The 30, this is 41 of the series. This is part of the 6 comics that make up the Empire Strikes Back adaptation series. This one is, I would say, the number 2 favorite comic in my entire collection. And the reason being is this has, number 41, is the first cameo introduction of Yoda in a Star Wars comic. That is incredible. Yoda and R2-D2 are 2 of my favorite characters in Star Wars, and this is the first cameo appearance of Yoda in a Star Wars comic. Now, what's also great about this comic, too, is that it has a great behind-the-scenes sub-feature story in the comic adaptation about the research and production process that took place to write the 6 comics that make up the Empire Strikes Back adaptation in the comic book form from Marvel. So this is a very, very, very important one just because of the first cameo of Yoda as well as the story featurette that's inside of this where they talk about that it took over 3 months to complete the 6 comics in this series. And there's some fantastic Yoda rendition art in this as well. And it's also the only book series in the books that have that started the corner art change. So it's not the only ones, but it's the change of the corner art. So again, we talked about some of the earlier ones. Let me pull it up here. Here is Luke Skywalker up in the corner art. You can see here, it's R2-D2 and C-3PO. It was the first time in the Empire series, that started with the Empire series, where they actually put two of the mainstay characters, other than Luke, in the upper right corner, the upper left corner of the comic, in the corner art of the covers. And you can see that will kind of continue as we go through with some of the other comics that I got. So a very, very important comic in my collection. I would dare say that this is my second favorite comic in my entire collection of Star Wars comics. My first one is, of course, Star Wars #1 from 1977. This one is the second, just because of the first appearance of Yoda, and the sub-story in here is just awesome. You gotta read it. I won't even spoil that story for you. Here's another a great one to have in your collection. Here is Star Wars, if I can get this thing from not blurring, Star Wars number 50. Look at that price jump. It's 50. And this one is a very important one because of the fact that it is the supersize collection issue. A very important 50th, it says right here, a supersized Star Wars Saga giant 50th collector's issue. I think that that's a great thing to have in your comic. Now, this one I got from the convention, and you can see it's improperly bagged. The bag gives plenty enough space. I think this is a bronze-aged bag. This bag is huge compared to that board. Too much movement of that comic, and I've got to get it out of here. This one I have not read. I started reading a little bit of it, but I haven't had time to finish it. But this one's going to go completely out of this bag when I'm done. It's just not bagged properly. If the comic were to roll off of that board, I could get some rolling and some crease damage from the board to the actual comic. So not a good thing to improperly bag your comics in the wrong size bags and boards. Going back to this one, I think that this one's important, not only because it's the 50th collector's issue of the Star Wars comics from Marvel. Now, the reason why I think this one is an important one, too, not only because it's the 50th collector's series, is also because it is the first appearance of Han Solo in the series of comics following Star Wars Episode 5, which is The Empire Strikes Back. And Luke is still learning about Darth Vader in this particular one, about possibly being his father, and he does this in a dream. And there's a very strange character that shows up in the very early stages of this comic that I was a little taken back with when I first started reading it. And again, I've not completed reading this one in its entirety. But there's a character in the early stages of this comic that strangely looks like Nosferatu. The character's name is Klisk, or Klysk, K-L-Y-S-K. But strangely looks a lot like Nosferatu. You don't know who Nosferatu is? Look it up. I kid you not. Nosferatu's in this comic. He's not named Nosferatu, but certainly by all character appearances of it, it looks a hell of a lot like Nosferatu. Just very strange. Another one of those weird things of like, why is this character in this book? But it's in there. I like the book overall for other reasons beyond that one little strange blip of an appearance. But certainly one great one to have in your collection. The giant 50th collector's issue of that one. A couple more to get through on here. Here is number 61 from the original Star Wars comic series. And this one is an important one because it's part of a series of comics in the original Marvel comic run of 1 to 107, where in this particular issue, Luke finds himself in a complete mess after a TIE fighter battle, which Luke Skywalker ends up killing a fellow captain. Friendly fire. And you could see that, the battle is happening right here. You can see the front of the TIE fighter right here, the glass, really cool artwork. But I thought that was important because Luke killed a fellow starfighter pilot in this one. And that just kind of dovetails into the story where he finds himself in really big trouble, in the hot seat, if you will, because of the occurrence in this particular number. This is number 61. Also improperly bagged. I have to get this one out of this bag and into a proper bag and board. And then the last one from my findings at the Steel City Con is this one right here. This is number 65. And this is one where Luke is placed back in command after trial after an alleged killing of Captain Bree in number 61. Very, very cool. So there's kind of a hint there of what happens and then the outcome of it. So a very cool importance to me of why I collected this particular comic in the overall why this one out of one of the 107 comics. Again, there's 107 original comics in the Marvel run. I don't want all of them. I really don't. I've read many of them, both as a kid and as an adult, and there's just, there's story in there. There really is, but it kind of just goes here and there, and it just lost my interest in some of them. But the important ones from the original run, I think have either a nostalgic reason for me or an importance in the overall story as the story happened between 4, 5, and 6 of the original run. Because you remember, when these comics were made, there was not episode 1, 2, and 3 out in the movies. So the storyline kind of hovers between 4, 5, and 6, and a little bit after 6. So very important one. So that is my pull and finding haul for the month of April. Kind of a thick stash to the collection for this month. Some great stuff going to be added to next month's collection as well. Also, what I can get over at Free Comic Book Day. So definitely go on over and check that out. And don't forget, next month, I'll be sharing some of my tips and tricks that I do for collecting comics when I'm out and about. But let's get into an important conversation that I wanted to bring to you, and that is CGC. This is arguably one of the most controversial topics in the comic book collecting arena, because some people like it, some people don't. Some people are on the fence and they are considering getting some of their comics looked at by CGC. Now, what's important to note about CGC is it is the, let me just pull it up over here so I can look directly at their website, because I don't want to misinterpret anything off of this, but also based on what they kind of present themselves as well as a conversation that I recently had last week with CGC. I had this conversation via a back and forth email with a representative from CGC because I had some questions as well. I happen to be a person that likes to find out as much information as I can and then formulate my decision around that. I don't like the rumor mill type of answers. I want to have facts in front of me when I make a decision. So CGC, also known as the Certified Guarantee Company, LLC. You could check them out, cgccomics.com. Also, not a sponsor of this. This is more of an editorial commentary about CGC. It's my humble opinion that's also dovetailed with some facts from CGC. So, I wrote CGC a couple of emails because I wanted to get some questions answered. So I'm going to go through some of my emails that I've sent to them and the responses they gave back to me, and I'm going to give you kind of my thoughts around this as we wrap up this video. People spend a lot of time collecting their comics. They spend a lot of hard-earned money to collect the comics. And then they want some sort of a way to prove that their comic is as good as it is. So they look upon companies like CGC to grade their comics. Now, remember, CGC, the certified comic company, the guarantee certified guarantee company is their name. So I wanted to know, because their comics, when they come back to you, are what's known as encapsulated. They are dual layered encapsulated. There's an internal layer and an external layer. And I thought to myself, okay, well, this is a big chunk of change, respectively, to get a comic graded and encapsulated. So I wanted to know, first and foremost, the protection of that case. So I asked a simple question of, does CGC cases provide 99% or 100% UV protection? If not, does it provide any protection? And if yes, what materials does CGC use for UV protection? I also asked, are CGC encapsulated comics 100% airtight? And what is the time frame for CGC guarantees of the encapsulated comic? That's my words verbatim that I wrote them in an email. They wrote back to me. And this is where the wow factor comes in. If you are considering getting your comics certified or graded, I'll call it, from CGC, here is their response. And I'm going to read it verbatim because I don't want to misrepresent what they're saying, and I don't want you to walk away having the rumor mill. This is facts from CGC, from an agent at CGC. No, our holders are not UV protected, nor are they airtight. They're not UV protected, and they are not airtight. Think about that. Think about that for a second. UV is the death of ink. It will fade ink fast. And they're not airtight, and air destroys archives. It does. Now, don't fool yourself. You think that when you're putting these comics and bags and boards at your house, you're doing everything, but your environment, it's not 100% archive ready. You're going to do the best you can in your house, but nothing's guaranteed in your house. You don't have guarantee of humidity. Now, I have a humidity gauge in my studio here that I can watch my humidity levels. Here is my humidity gauge. I know what the humidity is in my office. I know if it's in a comfortable level, if it's too high, if it's too low. I can activate the dehumidifier, get the moisture out of the air. I've taken all these steps in my office area to protect not only my office, but my area down here in my office area. So you can go to the extreme and build out your collection room or office or whatever you do as well. The big thing is being aware. So first and foremost, CGC is not UV protected in their cases, and they are not airtight. That is their words, not mine. I read it directly from their email. Now, they go on to say that both would be cost prohibitive and increase fees by a huge margin, making it not worth grading all but most valuable comics. So you see, they've tried to put a price point on their service that is attractive to the mass public. But you must be aware that they're not airtight. Their words, not mine, and they're not UV protected. So we'll talk about those in just a second, why that's important, not only for you, but for purchasing comics as well. Due to the fragile nature of comic books, and it seems that all they did was cut and paste from their FAQ and paste it into the email to my question about are CGC encapsulated comics, the question I asked was, what is the time frame for CGC guarantee of the encapsulated comic? That was my question. Their answer was essentially a cut and paste from their website into the email that says, due to the fragile nature of comic books, CGC does not offer a grading guarantee. It's merely their opinion. Again, let me read back their words. Due to the fragile nature of comic books, CGC does not offer a grading guarantee. However, CGC does offer the following guarantee. CGC guarantees that 2 or more comic professionals I don't know what that means because I can call myself a professional. But they say a CGC guarantees that 2 or more comic professionals will review every comic book submitted for grading. That's their A answer. B, CGC guarantees its holder to be free of defects. Defective holders will be replaced at no charge except when it is determined at CGC's sole discretion that the holder was subjected to abuse or if damage is the result of storage in a hazardous environment. Let that sink in for a second. We're going to talk about this. CGC guarantees that all books it certifies are authentic as described on the CGC grading label. That just means that the book is not a forgery. The signatures, if you get a signature series grading, the signature is authentic because in a signature series, CGC has to be present during the signing. They take the book away immediately. They encapsulate it, blah, blah, blah. So that's their answers on the guarantees. So let that sink in just for a second. Now, I did ask them, is there a time limit which CGC recommends having comics sent back for a free evaluation after they are originally encapsulated by CGC? So let me repeat that. I asked the question, is there a time limit which CGC recommends having comics sent back for a free evaluation after they are originally encapsulated by CGC? Their answer to me, and I'm going to read this verbatim, again, because I don't want to make any assumptions and let you live in a speculated world. CGC says, we do not offer any form of free evaluation unless there is an obvious major problem and it is a case-by-case basis. If it is because you think the book had been damaged or something due to mishandling, we would review it, and if it does appear to be damaged, you will have to pay to get it regraded. Think about all this. If nothing is wrong with it, you would still be responsible for the reholder and shipping fees. Again, nothing is free at CGC. They say, if it is just that you do not agree with the grade that we've provided, then I am sorry, but you are paying for our opinion based upon our standards. Our being CGC. If you have a specific example you are trying to get information about, I can probably help you better than answering somewhat vague general questions. I then wrote them back. I said, sorry, let me clarify my question, because apparently my question was not clear enough for them. I said, sorry, let me clarify my question. There are comic collectors that state that CGC says that you should send your comics to get re-evaluated every 7 to 10 years after they have been originally graded and encapsulated. Is this fact of CGC, or is this just rumor mill in the comic book collecting industry? This is their answer to me. Not re-evaluated, but submitted for a reholder every 7 to 10 years, as the microchamber paper in the comic no longer absorbs the acids inherent to the inks, which is one of the reasons page quality degrades over time. The microchamber paper won't hurt the book, but it no longer helps after 7 to 10 years. So there you have it. I said, thank you for answering my questions. It's a great help in considering for a few of my vintage Star Wars comics that I'm interested in. And that's where I left the conversation off. So let's wrap this all together and bring it home. You buy a comic, you get it graded. It is their opinion based on their standards. They're going to encapsulate it into plastic. You can never read this thing again unless you cut it out. And if you cut it out, you basically go through the whole process again if you ever want to get it re-encapsulated and regraded. Because once you take it out, any number of things could happen. So They can't honor their grading once you take it out of the package yourself. Excuse me. And I think that that's foolish. I think that, in my opinion, it's foolish to grade a comic and have it encapsulated because you can never read it again. Especially when it's somebody's opinion. You can go down right now, and I will put a link in this video's description to your local bookstore, if they have it in stock, or even online, and buy the Overstreet Grading Guide, which by all of the industry is the pinnacle of grading standards in grading comics. You can buy that book yourself. It's about $65. Even if it was $100, it's still a good price. You can then take your comic using this guide and grade it yourself. Very detailed, page by page, and grade it yourself and give your own opinion. Then take that grading guide, hand it to somebody, either who knows comics, understands comics, and can read a book, and have them follow that guide, the Overstreet Grading Guide, and look at your comic and mark down their final opinion, because that's all CGC is giving you, is their opinion. Have that person you know grade your comic. Hell, take it down to your local comic shop. Buy the guy a cup of coffee, sit down, and let him look at it with the grading guide, if they would do that. You got to be really good friends with your LCS to have them spend the time to do that. Or better yet, find a group of friends that are heavily into collecting comics. They've been doing it for a long time, so by my terms, they would be a professional. I don't know of how people become labeled as a comic book grading professional or a comic professional, because that's what CGC called themselves. Remember, that's part of their guarantee, that CGC guarantees that 2 or more comic professionals, as they call themselves, will look at your comic and give you their opinion based on their standards. So you can find 2 or more people that you know that are heavily into collecting, hand them your Overstreet Grading Guide, have them grade your comic, give you their opinion. And I guarantee that based on 3 or 4 different people, you'll start to see an average, a number start to show up that's probably pretty close to each other if they follow the guide to a T, which we hope by spending money with CGC, that's what they're doing. They're following their standards to a T, right? So if you follow the guide to a T and you have more than one person look at your guide, because that's what they're doing, more than 2 people, at least 2 people are going to grade your comic at CGC, and then they're going to average it out and give you a grade on it. You can do that with people, your friends, that are collecting comics for a long period of time, that know comics. To me, they're professionals. Why not? You know? I just think that, in my opinion, it's foolish to spend the money to get somebody else's opinion by CGC. And then have your comic sealed up in a plastic container that's not airtight and not UV protected and never be able to read your comic again. It's just foolish. It really is, in my opinion. Then you get the people that now have an encapsulated comic. Let's just call it a 9.4 comic. This thing is encapsulated, it's 9.4, and they set it on a ledge or bookshelf that is in direct line with a window in the heat of the summer. And that sun is coming through, and that UV light is hitting that comic, and UV destroys the comic. It starts to fade it, dries it out on the inside. This is an encapsulated comic. Somebody now takes that comic that is faded and affected by the heat and whatnot of the sun in a case that looks and appears to be intact. No melting and molding and all this stuff. It just the UV light affected the comic inside. And you get this comic, and you're thinking you're paying for this comic that's this 9.4. But if you were to take that same comic, take it out of the case, send it to CGC and have it graded, and it came back as, let's just call it a 7 now. You paid for a 9.4 comic that's really a 7 because somebody took an encapsulated 9.4, stuck it right in front of a window, and all of the sun faded it or affected it in some way, shape, or form in a negative manner. That is where I draw the line. I think, in my opinion, my rule of thumb for collecting comics is that the comics should be enjoyed, not encapsulated. It's my opinion. You are entitled to yours. But based on what I've shared with you today, I can't rightfully ever justify spending money to get a comic graded, to get somebody's opinion, to be encapsulated in a case that's not UV protected and not airtight, and all I'm doing is basing it on an opinion and spending good money. I figured out that with my Star Wars #1, which is one of the comics that I was originally interested in getting graded by CGC, which, again, I'm never going to do it anymore, based on my understanding of CGC now. But I figured it out that it would be over $50 to get my comic graded by CGC. That factors in the cost for the grading, plus the shipping and the insurances that I would put on it because of the value of the comic once it's so-called encapsulated. And it's all opinionated. So you have to watch what you're spending on grading your comics, because you can find yourself in the negative, where you spend money on getting the comic, buying it from a collector or an auction, then getting it graded, and then looking at the street value of the comic versus what you've spent on the overall comic itself. You can find yourself in the negative in equity on the comic, because comic value is a subjective, opinionated opinion as well, and we'll go into those as well next month. But I just wanted to share with you the CGC answers that I got, because I thought that it was very important for you who is also a collector, or maybe you're thinking about collecting, who hears about a service like this and you think that it's the best thing since sliced bread. I just don't get it. I don't. You're entitled to your opinion. I've said it before. You're entitled to use these services on your own volition. I don't see the value in it. I don't. I believe comics should be enjoyed, not encapsulated. Have them available, read them, open them up, share the comics with somebody else. That's what comics were meant to be, is enjoyed. They were never meant to be sealed behind some plastic that you can never open it up again. The writers never intended it to be that way. The artists never intended it to be that way. You can't read them anymore when they're slapped together in a encapsulated case. I won't even call it a sealed case, because they're not sealed. I read you the answer from CGC. So hopefully these discussions and this month's video helped you in your collecting. I hope you enjoyed my pull and haul for the month. If you'd like to drop me an email, I'd love to hear from you. Scott@scottydonline.com is my email. It's in the video description below. I'll also put a couple other links in the video description below to some of the useful things that I've talked about here on this month's video. If you have a suggestion of a topic that you want to have me talk about on an upcoming comic pull video, drop that in the comment below. Don't forget to like this video if you did. Share this video with somebody that you know. They may also be looking for these answers but don't know where to look at. Well, they're right here. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so. It's real simple. Find the little subscribe button and click it and push it. It's that simple. Then you become a subscriber of my channel. Find the gear that's next to the subscribe button. Click on that and make sure that you put a checkbox on inform for updates, I think it is what it says. That's the way that you'll be guaranteed to be informed and updated when a new video is posted on my channel. So click on the subscribe button. Look at the gear button next to the subscribe button. Not the one that's on the embedded video itself. The one that's next to the subscribe button. There's a gear. Click on it. Make sure you put a checkbox next to notify of updates, and then you'll be notified of the updates on my channel. And of course, if you already are subscribed to my channel, thank you so very, very much. I do appreciate you being a subscriber and checking out my videos that I produce. If you want to get involved with my channel beyond just being a channel subscriber, I've got a way for you to do so. Check out my Patreon campaign. It's patreon.com/ScottyDOnline, also in the video description below. So until next month's comic book pull video and any other video on my channel, remember, comics should be enjoyed, not encapsulated. We'll see you next time, Web World.